Rabbi Isai, we finished Demai yesterday and we'll start Kalam next week. But I thought I'd spend another bit of time going through some differences between Bavli and Yerushalmi. Now, of course, there's hundreds of differences. I mean, even in the Mishnayos, differences between Bavli and Yerushalmi Mishnayos are like 800 differences. Some of them are small, the odd word here or there. So we're not going to go through exactly halachic differences, but we're going to find examples of themes which show methodical differences that happen on various occasions, okay? So let's start with this one, let's say. The Bavli brings always a gezerah of Rabbah that you might carry something 4 hours in the street, right? You can't blow the shofar on Shabbos, you might come to carry it. You can't read the Megillah. The Yerushalmi does not hold, right? The Yerushalmi brings Minat Torah, we don't blow on shofar on Rosh Hashanah which falls on Shabbos. It's Minat Torah. Brings Yerushalmi, you don't blow the shofar, Minat Torah. And the Bavli holds that Minat Torah, of course you can blow the shofar, it's only rabbinical. So that's one point. Let's move on to the next one.
Just one question.
Yeah?
Does anybody dispute why Bavli doesn't hold of the makor of saying that shofar blowing on Rosh Hashanah is a Sidaraisa?
Well, the Yerushalmi holds Zichron Teruah. But the Bavli doesn't hold that Zichron Teruah is a reference to Shabbos. That's all. There's another one. In this book, there's 80 of them. I started at point 20, but we'll move on from here, then we'll see what there's time for. The Yerushalmi brings an argument if a fire told us a heat derived from fire has got a din like fire. According to Bavli, it's quite straightforward that told us a eish ka-eish. So what comes from fire has got a din like fire. So Yerushalmi brings the argument, are you allowed to heat up these metal ingots or whatever and put them in cold? And it's machlokes if told us a eish is like eish. Could be cooking heat from fire, like these coals. According to Bavli, it's no question at all. Next one. Ezras Nashim. The Yerushalmi holds that Ezras Nashim is like the rest of the Beis HaMikdash. It's got the same holiness. According to the Bavli, it's not like the Beis HaMikdash. So, for example, the din that allowed you to do Drabanans in the Beis HaMikdash, according to Yerushalmi, it's also in the Ezras Nashim, and the Bavli seems to imply opposite. There's references to Machas Beis Dovid where they sat in the Azara. Okay, next one. Muksa on Shabbos. According to the Bavli, Reb Nehemiah holds even a vessel which is used for permitted purposes, you can only move it for a purpose. It's got to be a purpose, not just fiddling around with it. According to Yerushalmi, this opinion is not brought down. Some say that according to the Yerushalmi, Reb Nehemiah also held of it. It's not so clear that Yerushalmi brings this opinion. For example, the Yerushalmi is pashat that you can heat up kalim on Yom Tov, use the vessels as your fuel. According to the Bavli, according to Nehemiah, it's forbidden because you can only use a vessel which is for a use rather than just burning it. Next one. Putting out metal, if it's like metal which is glowing hot. According to the Yerushalmi, it's Asmin Torah to put out a sort of metal, a hot, very boiling hot metal on Shabbos. And according to the Bavli, it's not an Asmin Torah. For example, heating up these iron things on Yom Kippur and putting them in the cold water for the Kohen Gadol to go in the mikveh, the Yerushalmi held there's the Isser and Torah to cool down these metal hot irons. And according to the Bavli, it's only rabbinical. Alright, next one. Judges giving evidence. The Bavli holds that hearing is not better than seeing. And the Yerushalmi doesn't bring it. So, for example, based in who saw the moilad of the new moon, according to the Bavli, they don't need to go and give evidence on it. Because hearing is not better than seeing it. They saw it themselves. So they don't have to get together and say it over for others to hear them. The Yerushalmi holds that they do need to give evidence. Alright, next one. Memar nafshach ba'arayah. So, do we say memar nafshach? How do you translate memar nafshach? But whatever it will be, whatever it should be, and therefore in a case of erva, nevertheless situation. So the Yerushalmi holds we don't say the svara of memar nafshach to allow arayas. The Bavli doesn't bring that klal. For example, the Yerushalmi wanted to explain that the chalitza of one of the women covers the half the co-wife. And it says, Memar nafshach, the Yerushalmi holds. Because if Maima, which maybe is possibly a kidney drabanan, Yerushalmi holds Maima might be Ben HaTorah actually. But if Maima is working, then the chalitza of the one would help. If it doesn't work, she doesn't need chalitza at all. And the Yerushalmi then says, and we don't say monashach to allow arroyos. The whole idea of the Yerushalmi, we don't say monashach to allow arroyos. The Bavli doesn't discuss that at all. All right, next one. According to the Chachamim, Yerushalmi holds the ksuva is minat Torah. According to the Bavli, it's Rabbanon. Did you know that? According to the Yerushalmi, according to the Chachamim, ksuva is minat Torah, and according to the Bavli, it's Rabbanon. Rabbi Isai, what does it say in your ksuva? Any ideas?
According to
The Chazi Lechi, what's it say? Chazi Lechi v'deraisa. Okay. So you paskin like Yerushalmi. Right? In our the Sephardi ksuvas, the Chazi Lechi. It's fitting for you. Doesn't say the Chazi Lechi v'deraisa. So the Machlokes Rishon Gamliel and the Chachamim, if you pay money from Kapotkia, when people are moving from one place to another for the ksuva, or from the money of Eretz Yisrael, the Bavli explains, according to the Chachamim, ksuva is Rabbanan, and according to Rishon Gamliel, it's Minat Torah, and the Yerushalmi says it's the other way round. So that's the question as to whether ksuva is a din Minat Torah or not, as whatever. Next one. We find with various cases of fines, the Yerushalmi often tashlumin, certain payments that have to be made. According to Yerushalmi, it's a knas. It's a sort of fine, and according to the Bavli, it's not. For example, one who eats tamei truma has to pay chulin, which is tahar. And the Yerushalmi learns it's a knas, it's a fine. The Bavli talks about it, but doesn't mention a reference to a fine at all. Alright? Okay, there are various examples they bring. Each of these dinim, they bring like various examples, but we're not going through all the examples. Next one. Being connected to one's tribe. The Yerushalmi holds we find a person that he should marry into his tribe and his family. You ever heard that? Bavli doesn't bring it. So, for example, the reason why ksuva of Kohenes is 400 zuz, Yerushalmi brings the svara. The knas is that a Kohen should marry a Kohenes and Yisrael should marry Yisraelis. Someone put that on the group actually about whether Kohen on the Kohen group, whether Kohen should marry Kohenes. So yes, according to the Yerushalmi in Ksuvas, he brings the svara. A Kohen should marry a Kohenes. Yisrael should marry Yisraelis. Bavli doesn't bring that at all.
You have some
Next one.
You
What?
can't marry a Talmud Chacham.
Okay.
Talmud Chacham should
Yeah.
should marry a Talmud Chacham.
Bastam Chacham, yeah. Next one. Yodos. Now, Yodos, of course, in Yerushalmi, remember you have Yodos in the Dorim rather. Yodos is where you say part of the phrase, you don't say the whole phrase, yeah, whether it's considered a vow or not. Because the Yerushalmi mentions the din Yodos only in the Dorim and Shavuos and Nazirus. So we have expressions where half expression will be a whole expression. The Bavli discusses it as far as Kiddushin is concerned, Gerushin, Peah, yes, Yad L'Tzedakah, remember the Gemara in the Dorim, yeah? Yad, Peah, Tzedakah, Hefka, Yad, Beis HaKisei. The Bavli mentions the whole examples of a Yad in this, a Yad in that. Yerushalmi doesn't bother. He only mentions it with the Dorim, Shavuos and Nazirus. Various arguments about that. Next one. A Kohen in Chuz
You say he
La'aretz.
doesn't mention it. It's not a direct steer. It's just not.
These are not steerers all. I mean, there's a whole book of differences between Bavli and Yerushalmi. These are ideas which are different, themes which are different, which we find in a few examples. So, for example, that din, there's like two different Gemaras which seem to imply that difference. So the difference between Daim Mechiach and Edom Mechiach, that's not found in the Yerushalmi. All right, next one. A Kohen who's in Chuz La'aretz. Are you lucky I'm Chuz La'aretz? The Bavli discusses the issue of going out to Chuz La'aretz. The Yerushalmi stresses we're talking about a Kohen. Bavli doesn't say anything. Bavli says going to Chuz La'aretz. For example, the Bavli holds someone went to Chuz La'aretz and died, and they said Baruch HaMakom She'ago. The Yerushalmi brings a similar story, but stresses he was a Kohen. And a Kohen going to Chuz La'aretz is not so straightforward, unless you're
There
going.
is Thomas
What?
Hammerman, yeah?
Yeah. The question
That's
about
more for Kohanim.
well, so you hold like the Yerushalmi, right? But the Bavli didn't say that. Next one, Shabbos. The Bavli holds until Tuesday belongs to the week before, and Wednesday onwards belongs to the following week. The Yerushalmi makes no distinction. So the Yerushalmi, one who says to his wife, this should be a get after Shabbos, according to the Bavli, it means till Tuesday. Or Hareza Gitila, it should be Chal after Shabbos, it means until Tuesday. Okay. The Yerushalmi does not make any distinctions. The Yerushalmi holds you can make Havdalah till Thursday, by the way. Yes? Till Thursday, according to the Yerushalmi. And it could be, the Yerushalmi's got a doubt, it could be the whole week is called Motzi Shabbos.
But we pass can like a Bavli then.
Yeah, okay, in many cases we ask it like Bavli, but I'm just telling you what the Yerushalmi holds. Right, let's move on. What about their shittas in Agada? So, in many places, the Yerushalmi brings an Agadic reason And the Bavli brings another reason, or it doesn't bring a reason at all. For example, why is a dry lulav possible? Why is a dry lulav possible? Bavli holds it's not a hidur. According to Yerushalmi, the dead cannot praise Hashem. And a dry lulav is like dead. You see, it's like a psukim agadic reason. Okay, the reason is based on the fact that Eretz Yisrael is the place of Nevuah, and Nevuah is the foundation for the wisdom of Agadah. That's why the Yerushalmi is more stressed with that. And they give various examples here. Writing on the Tzitz, he gives like 15 examples of this where we find this idea. Let's move on. Stories. The Yerushalmi goes to town on stories. The Bavli hurries them up a bit. For example, Elisha ben Abuya. In Bavli, it doesn't say that much about him. Yerushalmi says a lot. He killed Talmidim. He got them out of the base of Medrash. He got them all to work. He says, why are you learning? The story with his bris milah, with his mother, Rabbeah, he died out of Teshuvah, is all the Yerushalmi goes to town. It could be. The Bavli said less because the story was already in the Yerushalmi, so it didn't need to say as much. Possibly. He brings various examples here to find that thing. Next one. Learning Torah. The Yerushalmi puts more emphasis on Kiyama Torah than learning it. More on keeping than learning. The Bavli puts more onto learning. The Bavli, as Pashat Rishon Bar Yochai, didn't stop for davening when he learned Torah. Yerushalmi asked on that. How can learning Torah be better than keeping it? We start from learning to make a sukkah, to make a lulav. And it's better for a person, if he doesn't learn, he doesn't do it, it's better he shouldn't be created. And so it's better, how can he not keep the mitzvahs? He can't just learn, he has to keep them.
How do they do
Right?
that? Little lamadish with the last.
Yeah, well, okay, but the main thing is to do
package.
as well. You can't just learn, you have to do. And he gives examples of that. He says, like the Sin of Bnei Eli had a kapara through tefillah, lomed amanas lasos. All right, next one. Learning a trade.
Tradition.
Rabbi say, what does Yerushalmi hold about learning a trade? Yerushalmi holds it's absolutely better, very important to learn a trade. Yerushalmi brings a pasuk. We had it. No. Uvachata b'chaim. You shall choose life. Zu umnus. That is a reference to a trade. As a source, the person has to teach his son a trade. The Bavli brings no such pasuk. Okay, next one. Mesiras Nefesh. The Yerushalmi talks about Mesiras Nefesh even if you are potter me'ikar din. The Bavli does not. For example, Yerushalmi talks about an Amora who fasted Yom Kippur 2 days and he died. The Bavli also mentions that he fasted 2 days, but not that he died. So even though you're potter, Yerushalmi does bring things about Mesiras Nefesh. Okay. He says, he says in some of the stories of Mesiras Nefesh, the Yerushalmi was actually against the din, because you should be also to be Meiser Nefesh. And sometimes the Yerushalmi and the Mefarshim bring and mention this. How could this be done? He should never have done it. We give very examples about this. Okay. Next one, Eretz Yisrael. The Yerushalmi, of course, mentions more the chashivas of Eretz Yisrael, of living in Eretz Yisrael. In Halacha, in Agada, and Bavli, they said a bit less. Bavli also mentions a few places, the end of Ksuvas, of course. But Yerushalmi brings it in many, many places. Okay? For example, building a house. And one who comes back from the war, the Yerushalmi holds this is also only if you're building a house in Eretz Yisrael, you have the exemption. Because there's a mitzvah in building a house. The Bavli makes no distinction if you're building in Eretz Yisrael or building abroad. You're exempt from the war. Right? Next one. The 14 years when the Jewish people captured the land. The Yerushalmi discusses the years that the Bnei Israel captured the land and divided it up. The Bavli does not. So the Yerushalmi holds in these years they weren't yet allowed to have a Yifas Torah. The Bavli doesn't bring it. It could be the blessings and curses were said after 14 years. They were potter from some of the mitzvahs. Next one. This is now number 40 in here. Mistakes. The Yerushalmi brings various places where the Jewish people made a mistake. The Bavli does not. For example, the Stira, remember the whole question as to when Yerushalayim was broken into. Different psukim in Tanakh. Was it the 9th of Tammuz or the 17th of Tammuz? The Yerushalmi goes into a difference between them. The Bavli makes a distinction between the first temple and the second. But the Yerushalmi says it was on the 17th, but they made a mistake and thought it was on the 9th. Yeah, the Yerushalmi says they made a mistake. So you find that. He brings other related dinim, like the skull of Aravna they found under the Mizbeach. Remember Aravna, they found his skull? He was a guy under the Mizbeach. There was Tumah there. Whatever. Next one. 41. Murder. Yerushalmi brings in many places the Jewish people killed each other. The Bavli does not. So the Yerushalmi talks about the Cohenv Gedolim who killed one another, and there is a chashash that a deputy will kill the Kohen Gadol because he wants the job to do. He'll kill the other one. The Bavli does not bring this. They bring examples for that. Okay, next one. Kindness for the Goyim. The Yerushalmi holds you should do chesed even with Goyim as well, and the Bavli argues. So the Yerushalmi talks about many Amoraim who returned lost items to the Goyim. The Bavli holds is the Isuchamo. It's also to return a lost item to a Goyim. No Sechanim. The Yerushalmi holds many Amoraim did it. Right? And yet the Yerushalmi does talk about a Gnus of Goyim, and yet the Yerushalmi holds that many Amoraim did. So, for example, he brings examples. Yeah, did of Gan Toshav, Amoraim who returned lost items. According to the Chachamim, you're allowed to free a servant. All right, let's carry on. The ways of the Goyim. Yerushalmi talks a lot about the fact that the Goyim were Rishayim. The Bavli does not. So Ninveh, who did Teshuvah, the Bavli stresses it was proper Teshuvah they did. And that even they returned even a beam that they built into their house, they returned it. Yeah? The Yerushalmi holds that Teshuvah was trickery. They did not return what was in their homes. They didn't do proper Teshuvah. When you hear all the Musa drashas for Yom Kippur, right? Yerushalmi holds they didn't do proper Teshuvah. They said they'll do it, and this and the other, but they didn't really. What's relevant is about whether they crush or Goyim. Okay, it's Kias. Okay, well we don't. All right. Next one, 44. Yerushalmi talks about the fact that there'll be a miracle. It can be a miracle, and the Bavli doesn't. For example, one who tells his wife, this should be a get if he doesn't come back from now till 12 months. They heard he died. So in the Yerushalmi, there's an opinion who holds she's not allowed to get married because maybe a miracle happened and he's living. The Bavli does not bring this. Okay? So, for example, get a Misa. Can she get married after 12 months or straight away? Kohen Gadol never saw an emission, whether that's a miracle. You see someone who's been speared and everything, and maybe the guy will live, maybe there'll be a miracle. Yerushalmi else, you saw someone fall into a lion's den, we can't assume he's dead, maybe a miracle.
So that would be
next one.
That would be like they hold some Quran.
Yeah, Yerushalmi else, it can be miracles. Next one, 45. According to Yerushalmi, tefillah can change the Metzias. According to Bavli, it can't. For example, according to the Bavli, you shouldn't daven at a time when your wife is pregnant that she should have a boy, because it's a tefillah in vain. According to Yerushalmi, you can daven even during pregnancy until she's ready to give birth. There's actually an argument based in Machlekes based here by Shammai about who davened that Yosef should be a boy. Was it Rachel or Leah? There's an argument about that. Anyway, Machlekes in this shitta. So based in Mashpi al Basulim, okay, and the sin of Beis Edi. So again, davening while a woman's pregnant. Okay, next one. Segulas.
Change the gender.
Possibly, yeah. Well, yeah. According to Yerushalmi, yeah. Segulas. It's the way of Yerushalmi not to go to town over segulas. The Bavli goes a lot more, right? For example, the Bavli writes, Siparis Kromim was a segula for Zikaron, from memory. Yerushalmi doesn't bring it. Now, the reason is based on the Ramban. On Chuz La'aretz, Hashem put angels, mazalas, various other angels in charge. In Eretz Yisrael, there's nothing. It's Hashem's inheritance, right? And that's what they bring down. Eretz Yisrael is mufka from the mazalas. They had no control. There were no intermediaries in Eretz Yisrael, right? It's always under Hashem's eyes. And also based on Rav Haigon, that in things of segulas and kishuf belong near the house of Nebuchadnezzar. That's where Lilith was. That was the place for it more. In Bavel was more a place of witchcraft and things, but not in Eretz Yisrael. And that's why things are not in Yerushalmi. So, for example, don't open your mouth for the Satan, right? That's in Bavli. You won't find it in Yerushalmi, okay? Not to throw nails is not in Yerushalmi. Saying good things about a dream, Hatavas Chalaim, is not in Yerushalmi. There you are. Ein Harav was Shchiach in Bavel. In fact, the Ein Harav didn't apply with Yosef, is not in Yerushalmi. Right, let's move on. Angels and demons. So the way of Yerushalmi is to reduce in the names of angels and demons. It's hard, it just about mentions Satan. Satan's Mekatrik. That's just about as far as it goes. The Bavli does bring all these things and Agodas. For example, the Yerushalmi writes that Satan is a kitrug, and anyone who sleeps in a dark house on his own. The Bavli says that this demon gets in touch with him. Brought in the Bavli, Shida v'Shidos in Bavel, Eretz Yisrael, they said Zois Hagala. But again, based on Ramban, Chuz La'aretz, Hashem put all the Kachavim and Mazalis under various angels, but Eretz Yisrael, we don't have that. Also, he brings down, in Eretz Yisrael, the angels had to provide good. And you didn't need to ask Rachmim that they should help to be Mamlitz Zuchus, to bring the Shefa. So in Israel, you don't need the names of the Malachim at all. In Bavel, it was under these angels to decide whether to give good or not. So you need their specific names to ask for Rachamim that they should do Zuchus. Okay, that's what is the fact in Bavel. Next one, 48. In Bavli, you bring Agadas on what Hashem does. In Yerushalmi, you don't have such a thing. So the Bavli brings Hashem davens, Hashem comes to shul, Hashem puts tefillin on, right? Various Gemaras, you don't find that in Yerushalmi at all. You give various examples here. Kapara that in Bavli you have Kapara. Ask, get me a forgiveness that I made the moon small. Yeah, things like that. But next one, Shechina. The Bavli brings Agadas about the Shechina. Yerushalmi does not. It hardly mentioned the Shechina. The Bavli discusses is the Shechina in the west or everywhere. Ruach is the west wind is always more common because it's in the Shechina. The Yerushalmi doesn't discuss where the Shechina is. Next one. Oh, this is the famous one. The Yerushalmi asks, if Hashem knows the future, then why certain things? Why do we do various things if Hashem knows the future? Right? The Bavli doesn't mention this question. For example, the Yerushalmi, famous on this. The Yerushalmi asks, why does Hashem wait with the Chasimas HaBeinanim, the people of middle stage, and they get signed off when? On Yom Kippur. Why does Hashem wait till Yom Kippur to see if they'll do Teshuvah? He knows already from Rosh Hashanah if they'll do Teshuvah or not. The Bavli never asked this question. Right? There's various things. There's examples for when is Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is Mechaper. But it could be if they have a korban, then the kapara comes at the time of the korban. Well, if Hashem knows there's not going to be a korban, then as soon as Yom Kippur starts, the kapara should be. But then there's this going, well, maybe they have a korban and they got lost. So if they had a korban set aside, and then it got ruined, but Hashem knew it was going to get ruined, so therefore it should be a kapara from the beginning. Things like that. The Yerushalmi is famous on Sameach on that. If you get a chance, you can look it up. Next one. In Bavli, he brings Agadas, which are far-fetched, things which are not natural. The Yerushalmi doesn't bring things like that. So the Bavli brings Agadas, Rabbi Bar Chana. Where's Rabbi Bar Chana? Rabbi saying any offers? The famous Rabbi Bar Chana stories? In Mesaches? Rabbi Basra, correct. In Perek Hamoicha Es Hasfina, right? Various stories where we run a whale, we thought it was an island, but it was a whale and it moved around, various things. You can see the Juggler and the King book, which takes you to town over that. So it talks about animals which are wondrous, and so the Yerushalmi does not bring it. He gives various examples. I can pattern the whole word from din. It's not in Yerushalmi. In the future, the trees will bring their fruit out in a day. It's not in Yerushalmi. Various examples. 52. The Bavli praises the beauty of various people. The Yerushalmi does not. So the Bavli talks about the beauty of Adam Rishon, Yaakov Avinu, Rav Yochanan. The Yerushalmi doesn't bring it. Okay, next one, 53. Talmidei Chachamim. It says in the Gemara that Amoraim of Eretz Yisrael get on with each other, and the Amoraim of Babel are always arguing with each other. For example, in Bavli you find many places, I think when Rav was sleeping he said such a thing. And the Yerushalmi asks the question of Rav, doesn't say it like that. You never find that sort of expression. The Yerushalmi would never speak like that. Alright? Next one, 54. The Bavli discusses having derech eretz at a meal. The Yerushalmi does not. So the Bavli brings you have to drink a cup, not in one gulp, not 3 gulps, but 2 gulps. The Yerushalmi doesn't bring all that. 55. You'll know this one. You'll know this one. When you get arichas yamim, Yerushalmi always adds the taiva. Yeah, it's always been for the good. The Bavli only speaks about arichas yamim. So one who's marich be'echad, he says echad with the right kavanah. The Bavli says we give him long days and years. The Yerushalmi says marich la yama v'shnaisav be'taiva. Okay, 56. The Bavli brings the reason for lengthy days is because he's never done Navera, said Navera. The Yerushalmi doesn't mention this. For example, the Bavli brings various Tanaim Amoraim who had a long time, they never went against a certain Navera. The Yerushalmi doesn't bring that sort of thing. So, Bameh Harach Yamim, how did you have lengthy days? You won't find that in Yerushalmi. Next one, 57. The Bavli brings, when you do the will of Hashem, you merit many things. The Yerushalmi doesn't bring it. So the Bavli brings, you do Hashem's will, you get Vasafta de Ganacha, you'll gather in the grain. The Yerushalmi doesn't bring it. Okay, next one. 58, the future. The Yerushalmi does not like talking about the future. Olam haba, Yemos Mashiach. Right, the Bavli does. So the Bavli says this world is like 6,000 years and then we destroy it. The Yerushalmi doesn't mention all this. Right? So Dosh ben Dovid Bar is not in Yerushalmi. In the future Hashem will give us mitzvah sukkah to the Goyim, is not in Yerushalmi. Right? Various things like that. Next one, 59. The Yerushalmi holds we don't publicize sinners, so we don't embarrass them. The Bavli does not hold to this. So for example, the Yerushalmi writes, Mamzerim die together with kosher people, so we don't publicize who a mamzer is. Bavli doesn't bring all that. Next one, number 60. The Yerushalmi holds when the Kohen Gadol goes in the Holy of Holies, even a malach is forbidden to be there. The Bavli doesn't bring this. So in the story of the Kohen Gadol Tzadiki, who was hit by a malach in the Kodesh Kodashim, the Yerushalmi asks, but a malach is not allowed to be there. And the Bavli doesn't actually ask the question. So, okay. Next one. 61. Takanas of the Nevi'im. The Bavli holds the Nevi'im are not allowed to come out with any new dinim. The Yerushalmi argues. So Yerushalmi holds that, for example, Mansapach. What's Mansapach? The 5 letters, yeah? The 5 final letters. Wasn't in the earlier generations. And the Bavli asks, the Novi can't be Mechadish. Where's the Bavli in? Megillah, correct? Near the beginning, yeah? Base and base, yeah. The Bavli asks, the Novi can't be Mechadish something. And the Bavli answers that it was there from the beginning, they forgot it. But the Yerushalmi holds, it wasn't in the Dos Rishonim. So he says, based on the Aristotle, he said, in Eretz Yisrael, the Ruach HaKodesh can be mashpia on halachas. In Chuz La'aretz, the halacha is based on seichel. So therefore, the Bavli holds you can't be mechadish something. Yerushalmi argues. Yerushalmi holds you can be mechadish new things.
But the Bavli doesn't really stack up because he couldn't have forgotten it because otherwise he didn't wear tefillin.
I know. They asked that question. I know. 62. In many places, the maskana of the Yerushalmi is brought in the Bavli and it's pushed away. It's rejected. As we always said, the Yerushalmi came first. And the Bavli saw the Yerushalmi. So for example, the Yerushalmi holds, you say, Baruch Shalom Asani Bor. Didn't make me a fool. The Bavli, this opinion is brought and is rejected. And we say Shalom Asani Abed. Because the Bavli was sealed after the Yerushalmi. And sort of rejected it. It brings many cases. Uman Kodesh Vachkeli, Get Mion, whatever, various 50 cases here. 63. In many places, Yerushalmi brings a Havamina, pushes it, and reaches a conclusion. And the Bavli just brings the maskon of the Yerushalmi straight away, but without the Havaminas, without the suggestions on the way. The Bavli just brings the maskon. So, for example, the Yerushalmi discusses the Aina of Talmidei Chachamim, It was whether what depends on what job they had, and the Maskana is Friday night, whatever, and the Bavli brings his Pasha is Friday night. So the Yerushalmi had some questioning on the way, and the Bavli just brought the final din. And the reason is because the Bavli was sealed after the Yerushalmi. Okay. Next one, 64. You've heard this one from me before. The Yerushalmi often compares sugyas of different things, and the Bavli doesn't like to do that. So, for example, the Yerushalmi connects the machlokes if Zimun is with 2 or 3 to the argument if 2 people who judge, is their din a din? Right? Is their verdict a din if you have a base din of 2? And it compares it to the argument if Zimun is with 2. Right? The Bavli also discusses Zimun with 2, but it doesn't really make the connection between the 2. You okay?
I
Fine.
really understand that one.
You didn't understand that one?
A lot of times in Shas we compare siblings.
Well, yeah, but there's got to be some sort of reason why we're comparing them. Here, what's one to do with the other? What's Zimun to do with 2 people judging a din? What's it's not relevant? He says, he brings examples. So let's see, comparing various sugyas. Here, I'll look up one of the dinim here. 219, let's see. So he's saying Zimun with 2 or 3 is Todeh with Dinei Mominus. So Yerushalmi, what's discussed Mominus here? Oh, that's what he says. He brings examples. And one who makes a neder from a vegetable, the argument with money as well, and Hefka didn't come in. He gives examples here. All right, next one. Aim la mikra, aim la masorah. So the way the word is written, the way it's read. The Bavli argument is many places you find that. Yerushalmi never brings it. So for example, when the metal comes from the wood, when someone kills someone accidentally, and the Bavli depends on the machlokes yesh aim la mikra la masorah. So Yerushalmi just says it depends on something else. So the walls of the sukkah, how many walls you need, the reasons for the arguments. Yeah, the idea of al tikri, you don't read it like this or like that. You don't find that in Yerushalmi. Next one, 66. Smuchim. Sometimes you find things are near each other, yeah, and they're called smuchim, right? So in Bavli you have that in many places. Yerushalmi, you never have it. So the reason of Yehuda that a person's forbidden with the anusa of his father and futa of his father, the Bavli brings it learns from smuchim. The Yerushalmi holds it's a drasha from another pasuk. Others say even the Yerushalmi holds of smuchim. Okay. Next one, 67. Lamed min lamed, learning something from something else. The Yerushalmi doesn't like learning something from something else which has been learned from another din which is not mafurish. The Bavli does it. Okay, where does apart from various things in Kodshim, you may have learned the Ezel Makoman. If you learned the Perek Ezel Makoman, and where you got 16 droshes one after the other, Binyanav from Binyanav, Kavachomer. So over there are various limudim in Kodshim that even according to the Bavli, you can't learn one lamed from another lamed. That's the Sugi and Mentes over there in Zvachim. But otherwise, you can learn one thing from something else that's been learnt out. The Yerushalmi doesn't like doing that. So, for example, the source that you can check chametz with the light of a candle, the Yerushalmi just brings, I will search Yerushalayim with candles. And now, Hashem Nishmas Adam. The Bavli brings Metzia from Chibush from Chibush from Maneros. The Bavli brings 5 sources, one learnt from the other, in order to get to the answer that you want, right? Whereas Yerushalmi just learns it much less. Next one. Rayas from Metzias. Yerushalmi brings rayas from reality. The Bavli does not do so. For example, the Bavli brings an argument, is rice and millet, do they cause chametz? The Yerushalmi brings, I don't know why anyone should think rice should cause chametz, but anyway, the Yerushalmi brings machlokes whether karamis, whatever that is, causes chametz. But also there they ask, they should just check it out. Check it out. Remember I told you, the Yerushalmi's got the classic thing, we don't know this person, did he say or not? So Yerushalmi says, go and ask him, right? Classic Yerushalmi, we've had that. Go and ask him, you don't know what, and the Yerushalmi says, oh no, he became a deaf mute, we couldn't ask him. But the Yerushalmi says, look, if you can sort it out by asking the questions, then you do that. Next one, 69. The Yerushalmi stresses the importance of receiving the Torah through Masoros. The Bavli doesn't. So the Yerushalmi, Hozra Chanina, tried to hear from his teacher halacha of at least 3 times. The Bavli doesn't bring it. Next one. Many places you find the same argument brought in Bavli and Yerushalmi, but the opinions are opposite. The nafka minas, you need to, you've got klali, we've got rules how to paskin, like Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish, and you have to check out the shit of which Tana, which Amora is a stira and the Amora. So Kinin Adarim is Machlokes Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Yerushalmi holds Rav Yochanan holds their Lashon Chachamim. Rish Lakish holds their the Lashon of the nations. The Bavli brings the same Machlokes, but the opinions are reversed. Yerushalmi often swaps even Mishnayis, right? We find Yerushalmi changes arguments that the Bavli wasn't sure who said what, and he says we bring a proof. In Gittin Perek Sheni, there's various arguments for Yechon and Lakish, and in Yerushalmi they are all the other way round. Next one. Yerushalmi often holds that sometimes the person has answers, but he doesn't bother to give the answers. Well, the Bavli doesn't bring that. So the Yerushalmi asks why Beis Hillel didn't answer the Beis Shammai in the Mishnah. He says the person, sometimes you have answers, but you don't just give them. The Bavli also asks that, but it remains with the question. Yerushalmi, you have the phrase, these people you pushed away with the stick, what are you going to tell us? So various heretics asked Rav Simlai some questions, and after that, he gave an answer. But the Talmidim said, yes, for them you gave an answer easily, but what are you going to tell us? So you find that in Yerushalmi. Next one. Opening a Masechta. The Yerushalmi always opens Masechta with a halachic aspect. The Bavli sometimes starts with other things. Right, the order of the Masechtas, or the wording of the Mishnah, or something. Right, so Yevamos in Bavli discusses Lashon and Mishnah, the order. Yerushalmi starts already with the sugya of Nesra, Chazra, Hutra. Yerushalmi gets into that halacha straight away. Next one, 74. Yerushalmi finishes the Masechta with halacha, unless the Mishnah itself finishes with Agada. Bavli often finishes Masechta with other stories, like a story or Agada, or whatever it is. So at the end of Chagiga in Bavli, he talks about the Talmidei Chachamim and the sinners. Yerushalmi finishes off with the laws of Tumas Klei HaMikdash. 75. Yerushalmi brings sugyas more in the Masechta where they belong. Bavli, things are all over the place. Yeah? So Shloah Sani Goy, in Yerushalmi it's in Masaches Brachas. Right? In Bavli it's in, any offers? It's in Menachas. Right? It's a different place. Next one. Chiyuv Shlila. Yerushalmi often uses a wording of chiyuvis as opposed to shilulis. For example, the Bavli says something which the fire does not have strength over. That's Lashon Shlila. Yerushalmi is something which goes in the fire and comes out. Do you understand the different terminology? Not something affected by the fire, something which the fire has not got power on. So Shlila is whether it's direct wording or indirect wording. Next one. Yerushalmi explains ideas in arichos. The Bavli sometimes just gives them names. A Bavli discusses lavud, 3 centimeters, 3 tvachim. Yerushalmi explains it. Every 3 which is close to the ground is like a mechitza. Yerushalmi stresses what lavud is.
Every single time.
Next one. I can't do it about every single time. He brings machlekes about doik minavi nava asra, lavud k'mechitza, lavud k'sosim. Yerushalmi stresses it. Next one, grama. Bavli mentions grama. Yerushalmi does not. Bavli mentions grama with damages is patur. Yerushalmi also holds that, but he doesn't call it grama. It says also ligroim, grama b'nizakim is not in Yerushalmi. Alright, next one. Sagi Nahar, somebody who's blind, who's called full of light. Yerushalmi uses this lashon. The Bavli does not. So the Bavli explains Kipshutam. Yerushalmi says lashon Sagi Nahar. So Yerushalmi uses wording like that. Svek Sveika, a doubt of a doubt. The Bavli calls it a doubt of a doubt. Yerushalmi calls it 2 doubts. Shnei Sveikas, 2 doubts. For example, a husband who says Pesach Musaf Pasasi, whether she was with him at the time, we don't know, was it Ratzon, was it Einos, and Suvas. Bavli calls it Svek Sveika, Yerushalmi calls it Shnei Sveikas. 81. Yerushalmi likes going into reckonings of numbers. You may have noticed. The Bavli does not. The Bavli writes that the area of 70 by 70 is like the area of 100 by 50. But it doesn't say how you work it out. Yerushalmi in Erevin explains how you work it out. Okay? Next one. Reb Tarfon. Remember this one? In Yerushalmi, Reb Tarfon was called... Any offers?
Russia.
Reb Tarfon.
Kedai, Lomos.
No. Avian shall Klal Yisrael. Tarfon was called the father of all Klal Yisrael. You will not find that in the Bavli. So Yerushalmi brings a raya that you're allowed to cheat because if you're tough and the father of Israel didn't cheat, that brings about it. Various cases were over there. All right, that was the end of that. How are we doing? We've got 2 or 3 more minutes. I'll do a few more, and we'll stop there. So we started at number 20. So I'll go from number 10. All right. The Yerushalmi holds you can make a bracha on a need. And the Bavli holds you've got to be a benefit. So according to the Bavli, you don't make a bracha on medicine. Right? According to the Yerushalmi, you can. And there's a special bracha for it. Now, next one. Doing a kinyan without a svara. According to the Bavli, an act of kinyan is based on a svara. According to the Yerushalmi, in many places it helps where there's no svara. So freeing an Eved Kanani with money, the Bavli is posher, the money has to go to the master. Because you're freeing and the master gets the money. Yerushalmi, there's an opinion, the master gives the money to someone else and the servant goes free. Now, there's no svara behind that. Kinyan, which are unusual kinyanim. Yerushalmi brings unusual kinyanim not brought in the Bavli. So Yerushalmi brings the kinyan kitzatza. When you sell a field, the family bring barrels and nuts and almonds and they break them in front of the children. The Bavli mentions an idea of it, but not about someone who marries and not really as a kinyan. Alright, Mashicha. The Bavli holds as machlekes is ben Torah and Rabbanan. Yerushalmi doesn't bring the argument at all. So Yerushalmi brings the Chachamim. Mashicha is Kaina. Sounds like according to everyone. The Bavli holds only according to Rish Lakish is ben Torah. Okay, next one. Lashon of a neder. The Yerushalmi holds, explains the Lashon of neder. We look at the wording of the neder. The Bavli holds, Nedarim, you follow Lashon b'nei Adam. You look at the way people speak. Whereas Yerushalmi says, we look at the actual wording that was said, not on the way people speak. And there are various arguments about that. And the Yerushalmi brings an argument, do you follow Lashon Torah or Lashon Bnei Adam? According to the Bavli, everyone holds you follow Lashon Bnei Adam. Various differences in the Haggadah Shel Pesach. In Bavli, there's 4 sons, Chacham, Rasha, Tam, and Sheni Elisha. Yerushalmi, instead of Tam,
3.
No, we have 4. So instead of Tam, we have Tipesh. Okay? There's another gear said Manishtana as well. The order's different there. Babanim is different. Okay, the bracha of the Haggadah is different. Next one. The Yerushalmi holds Mazhir min adin. You can give a punishment for a kavachomer. The Bavli holds you can't. So Yerushalmi holds we can warn min adin. Okay, not punishment, but at least a warning based on a kavachomer. The Bavli says the opposite. Even if we say you can punish min adin, you can't do as Harav min adin. You can't do a warning min adin. Maybe do 2 or 3 more. Tonight, Kafur, the Bavli holds that according to May, you need a double condition throughout the Torah. You can't learn one from the other, you need a double condition. According to Yerushalmi, it's not so straightforward. Next one, the Bavli holds that Kiddushin is compared together. So Kiddushin of Kesef and Shtar and Bia are all compared together. Yerushalmi argues. So the 2 Talmudim have a doubt if Shtar Kiddushin has to be Lishma. The Bavli adds that Zahav it doesn't need to be Lishma because it's compared to Kesef. Yerushalmi doesn't write that. Okay, next one. Yerushalmi, it's clear you're allowed to wipe out a name of Hashem which is not written with Kedusha. The Bavli doesn't bring it. For example, in Bavli and Yerushalmi, it's brought a din that you need to write Hashem's name. If a person made a mistake and he wanted to write Yehuda, and in the end he didn't put the Daled in, it's not holy. Yerushalmi says you're also allowed to rub it out. And the din is not brought in Shulchan Aruch, but the Shach allows you to rub it out for the sake of Tikkun. Okay, there you are. That's 60 examples, 70 examples of differences between Bavli and Yerushalmi.